This is my buddy Austin Sharp. Sunshine Industries went a different direction, and Austin lost his job, not to any fault of his own, but he is newly employed at Waggles. So, so next time you go to Waggles, tell Mr. Waggle we appreciate him very much, because I plan on calling him this afternoon. It's a pleasure being here with y'all. I was telling you about West High School, I forgot about that. I went in there and answered to, give my little song and dance thing. I was new kind of at the deal, steakhouse member. And they always do, like they did at Bearden High School. I remember when Lamar Alexander came there, all the A students, unlike me and Chris Haggerty, we sat in the back. They had all the prepared questions, Mr. Governor, would you rather play at the state capitol or in the White House, because they thought he was gonna run for president. All just a big schmooze fest. And of course, we didn't get to ask anything, of course, because we weren't A or B students, I don't think, at that time. And so, I always remember that, because every time you go into a school, they do that same thing. And this little girl was sitting in the back, and I could tell she wanted to ask a question. After they all asked all their prepared questions off this card, she raised her sweet little hand and said, "Are you single?" "Yes, ma'am, I am." And she said, "Good, because my mom was going through a divorce. Would you take her out?" And I remember the teacher, she's about to jump over the desk at her, and I said, "No, all I could think of is, well, get me a copy of her last W-2 and an 8x10 glossy." Never got either one, but anyway, it's a pleasure being with y'all. I brought my beautiful bride Kelly here's with me, so I thank you, honey, for being here. Well, there is chicken, but it's not technically a chicken dinner, so we're kind of going out a little bit. And it's great to be in a room full of strong women, and a few men too. I've always been surrounded by strong women. My mama was an incredible, gifted Christian lady. Lost her oldest brother Roy in the Second World War fighting the Nazis, and she was a little 17, 18-year-old girl and flew an airplane during the Second World War. She was a pretty cool lady, and then she taught school and ended up teaching at Knoxville College for the last 10 years. Some months she got paid and some months she didn't. And I always remember at the funeral, these two sweet ladies came up to me and said, we've inducted your mama into the Hall of Fame. And I thought, my mama would say, "Oh, y'all shouldn't do that," but I let them speak at the funeral, and it was pretty cool, I thought. But anyway, my buddy Sherry Witt's here, always. Very strong woman there. She was very kind to my daddy. I think some of those gray hairs he got at the University of Tennessee probably due to wit. Daddy was in charge of student conduct, but he also had the Freshman Honor Society. I'm not sure which. I kind of think it was a mixture of both, maybe. Hey, okay, that's a good answer. Yeah. And my buddy Phyllis Severance. Phyllis is back there in the back. Always a Republican leader. She's the best. Phyllis, stand up so we can see you. For the record, she's been a thorn in my side for I think 30 years now. No, she's not the most informed person. If she ever calls you on the phone, you better have your facts straight. She's not gonna. Well, I don't know about that, Phyllis. She knows about it. And of course, our next governor is going to be Marsha Blackburn. That's going to be a pretty cool thing, I think. Our incoming county mayor, Betsy Henderson. Is Betsy here? No. All right. Had a conflict. That's all right. That's okay. You're all right. She's a friend of mine. Of course, my chief of staff, Jennifer Lingenfelter's here, and I got the rest of the whole crew. But I am worried about where our country's headed, folks. I'm worried about the future of this country. We've got people running all over the country. It's no accident that we had someone who actually marched with a Marxist dictator that was running for mayor of Knox County and came within a few votes, really. I mean, it's kind of scary where we've been headed. I think a lot of it is just maybe we're just a little, maybe not arrogant, but we're just a little overconfident about where we are as a county. Oh, we're still winning, but we're not winning by as much, and they get that. It's no mistake that AOC and the rest of the squad were all elected at the same time when I was. the way it's happening in these billionaires around the country, not the world, and we know who they are. They put money, thank you. They put money in these campaigns, and they do it all over the country, but they really, I mean, according to them, they hit gold with those. And we like to joke about AOC, and she's a friend of mine, honestly. We get along. We don't vote together on anything. I always joke about on my videos, don't look at her, because if she sees you, she'll steal your soul. So, and she always Burchett, and I always call her my friendly neighborhood Marxist. But the reality is, she is a national figure. And, you know, the best we have to say about her is that she's a bartender. You know, I just don't see that as, that, even though I'm Southern Baptist, I don't see that as quite the negative we think it is. And I think we need to be really careful. And I've told our leadership, I said, look, there's nobody coming into that House chamber cheering for any of us. But when those little kids, young people, I'm talking about single digits up to college students, and they wave to her and cheer for her, we better start paying attention to what's going on. And a lot of it's happening in our colleges and our universities. We've allowed the Marxist philosophy that making a profit is a bad thing. I don't know about y'all, but I'm kind of a fan of capitalism. I've said this many times, and I believe it. Outside of Christianity, I think that it's lifted more people out of despair than any other instrument in this world. And it's something that under the Biden administration, we allowed it to really creep in that this was a bad thing. I remember I was on Fox, on their business show one time. I'm sure somebody else had canceled, and so they allowed me to come on. But I started talking about small businesses in our community. I talked about my buddy Teddy Phillips and Jordan. His daddy started that with a pickaxe and a shovel, clearing a ditch, and they were in charge of the cleanup of the World Trade Center. I talked about my friend Pete DeBusk. I know we've got a LMU lawyer who's getting ready to be a lawyer, this young lady right here. Stand up so everybody can see you. We're gonna embarrass you right here. All right. I'm gonna graduate and be in real estate law. So you need somebody to do what? Thank goodness. Yeah. And so, I talked about Pete DeBusk, how he started this. He had an idea, and he put something together in his garage, that little boot you see people wear around, and they break their foot. It's Pete DeBusk, and guess what? He chose to live right here in our dadgum community. You had a guy that played football for the General Neyland, and had one little gas station in Bristol, Virginia, right across the line. And then that was Big Jim Haslam. He became a standard bearer for the oil business throughout the country, if not the world. And he chose to live right here in Knoxville, Tennessee. I think there's a reason for that. I think it's because we've got people that want to strive for business. I was telling Jimmy Matlock just a minute ago, the tire business, how that these big corporate conglomerates that we've allowed, these world things that aren't necessarily, they may be started out in America on a small basis, but they come in and they do all these great big sales, and we run over there like a bunch of dadgum lapdogs and buy up stuff, and then we forget about our local businesses that struggle, and all they're trying to do, as in when they did it in the gas business, they dumped the gas at a cheap price and drove everybody else out of business. And then guess what? They could jack the price up right after that. So I see Ginger Baxter over there. They're in the gas business as well. Same deal. So I think we need to start paying attention to that. And I remember when I was on that Fox show, my phone rang and I looked down, it was Big Jim Haslam, and I thought I'd said something bad about UT, because every time I say something bad about UT, I get a call from him. As of late, I haven't been saying a lot bad, but I'll try to correct that in the future. But he said, Timmy, he said, don't ever apologize for being a capitalist. I like what you said. I said, thank you, Mr. Haslam. And so I think that's something we ought to take to heart about what's going on. You've got a person running in New York. Every time one of these dadgum Democrats in Congress tells you they're a moderate, they're getting along, they're doing bipartisan things, ask them how many dadgum times they voted with Pelosi, how many times they voted with Hakeem Jeffries. I'll tell you this, it's about 100% of the dadgum time. That's how many times they voted with Pelosi. They're not moderates. they just don't have the guts, if they are, to stand up for what's right. Sometimes I'll vote against my party. There'll be 4 or 5 red dots up there, and it's me, because I think it's right. I think it's the stand we should take. It's the beach we should die on. And, you have somebody running in New York right now that's gonna be a United States Congressman. Said they use that beautiful flag as a napkin. I don't know about y'all, but that makes me sick to my stomach. Where in the world are they getting that kind of thing other than from our public colleges and universities? We've got to clean up our act. We need to start calling these people out. Every time one of those Democrats says that they're a moderate, ask them if they're going to vote to seat that person. Ask them if they're going to condemn them publicly, because they need to be condemned publicly. How can somebody who claims to be a Marxist and a communist take an oath in this country to uphold the Constitution of the United States? Outside of our own Bible, probably one of the best written documents of all time. How can they do that? I'll tell you how they can do that. Because they're liberal, they're Marxist, they hate this country, they hate that flag. I'll tell you what about that beautiful flag. That's the same flag that Americans died for, to free the slaves. It's the same 48-star flag that's on my wall, that was on my uncle's casket. He was too old to go to fight. He went anyway. They sent him home. They called him back up. He ended up dying in the hedgerows. It's the same flag when they played that beautiful national anthem at a University of Tennessee football game when I was a little boy, and I'd look up and look at my sweet mama, and she'd be crying because she's thinking about her brother. And I knew that. That same flag that my dad killed a lot of people for. So we can sit here and have this beautiful meal and not worry about an aggressor from overseas coming after us. He killed a lot of people. His scars were internal, they weren't external. To the day he died, I've told this many times, but it's the truth, it needs to be repeated. Every time I ever have to wake my dad up, from the time I was a little boy to the time he was dying down there at Ben Atsley Nursing Home, I'd wake him up by his big toe, because he thought he might wake up on one of those islands. I will kill you. He'd pin you up against the wall if at that point, until he realized where he was. That's what that flag stands for. It stands for the freedom that we enjoy in this country. Every young thing we have in this country. And those are the people that want to destroy it. I think we better pay attention to these dadgum elections. We better start taking a stand. We better start telling people what's right. We better get on Facebook. Every time they trash this country, stand up for this country. There's more of us. When Charlie Kirk, my buddy, spoke at the University of Tennessee, he had one of the biggest crowds he ever had. Why is that? Because kids are hungry for that message. They're hungry for what we're talking about. We need to make sure that the rest of the country knows that, and these elections are that important. Please do not take this for granted. I beg and plead you to please get to the polls. Get your friends to the polls. I'm asking you for your vote. Thank you very much. I went on too long, and I will stop there, and I'll answer any questions. Sherry Witt's back there looking at her phone. I walked by her, she had a picture of her dog on her watch. I said, "Is your dog calling you Witt, or is that a picture?" And she looked down and goes, "That's a picture." So, anyway, does anybody have any questions? Yes, ma'am. Yeah, my water, please.
You know me. I am very frustrated. First of all, Navy wife, Navy daughter. Gone through it my entire life. What are we doing to stop the stupidity about our sailors on the Lincoln? They're not being paid they're not being fed with rats. To this day, my husband does not like powdered milk or powdered eggs because of the aircraft carrier. They are feeding these. Why are we not getting out and making sure that the press knows that our sailors are being taken care of? And because of social media, it used to be years ago, my dad had to write a letter. My husband had to write a letter to complain at home, and usually they didn't. Now our sailors have instant social media availability to complain and whine. And every single sailor who's on any ship over all the decades, even in sailings, there's always sailor suicides. I'm so frustrated to hear this. And when you see the picture of the rats on the thing, look against the wall, it's brick. Military doesn't have brick walls on ships. So what I'd like to do is see what you, Tim, my dear friend, and the rest of our party is doing to combat this atrocity saying that we are abusing our
Well,
savings.
first of all, my dad, when he was on Peleliu, I remember he told me his rations were from the First World War. And they didn't have water. That 3-day mop-up turned into about 60 days of the most brutal combat of the entire Second World War, and they brought up water. And the Navy sent barrels in that were oil barrels, and they just had washed them out one time, and it was awful. And yeah, when you take that oath, you're making a sacrifice. It is a sacrifice. And my wife, Kelly here, her deceased husband, the father of my child, who I never got, I love my child, but I never got to meet him. But yeah, I remember her telling me, you know, under the Clinton administration, how that the guys starved, and then under Reagan, they did pretty well on those subs eating. But, you know, it is a sacrifice that they're making. And yeah, social media is the instant thing. And I get it. That's the latest. It's no accident that's happening right before the election. It's also no accident that we just passed probably the largest spending bill in the history of our military. So I suspect any of those problems will be cleared up, and it's also no accident that this is happening during the recess when we're supposed to be at home doing our work at home, because we can't do anything about it. So I suspect about September 1, there'll be inquiries and bills to correct that. But a part of it's the social media. I mean, we're our own worst enemy, and I rail on and my leadership always says, I wish you'd quit saying that. I said, well, is it wrong? If it's not wrong, fix the dadgum problem. Because during the week of our president's wonderful State of the Union address, we messaged on appliances that week. And I thought, man, we had so much we could have talked about. We just missed it. And I think we're our own worst enemy a lot of times. We're very complacent in our spot, in our sweet job, in our entourage, that we forget that we've got a country to save. And I hope that we further that. Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions? John?
Tim, obviously it's more of a local than national, but with Knox County, again, there was maybe an unexpected amount of Democrat votes in this last election. So the question is it Republican turnout, or is it messaging, or are we trending in the...
It's a combination. I think there's enough there. We just gotta get them to the polls. I mean, Shalson's probably been elected longer than anybody in this room. I mean, you've seen the trends. And I can remember Sequoia Hills used to be a stronghold Republican. West Hills, where I grew up, stronghold, but it's not anymore. And it's, a lot of you good folks have moved out to the county. I never realized the cities within the county. I understand that. But a lot of it just has to do with laziness. I mean, 12% basically nationwide elect the President of the United States. And I consider myself an evangelical Christian. When we see 40% of evangelical Christians stay home on election day, 30% of gun owners, I'm a gun owner, 30% of them stay home on election day. What is it? I think hunger and fear are the two greatest motivators in life, it seems, in the history of our world. And we don't have enough fear yet. And because we're just gradually losing all of our powers, but I think you've seen it, light years has happened. I don't know what it's gonna take to shake it up. We've gotta get better at the messaging. I think that's the key to the whole deal. These young people gotta help us old folks how to message. I was, my staff, I got these numbers. 1 week, I was viewed outside of it's TV, radio, social media, all social media avenues. I think it's over 3 billion times. And that's more than anybody almost in Congress right now. And so, and I've tried my hardest. I go to the meetings, social media, and you know what they're talking about. Some guy brought up billboards, and I just shook my head. And then another guy started talking about how what we need to do is go talk to the newspapers and explain to them our opinion. Those newspapers hate our guts. I wouldn't take a dadgum newspaper if you paid me. I take Hunley's paper because it's free. I go get it. It's actually got pretty good editorials in it, and they usually agree with me. So anyway, I got one more question. I know I'm getting a hook. Yes, sir.
be the only person in the room that doesn't know this, but what is a DC sewer rat?
DC sewer rat? That's mainly the people I fight against, right? I always say that it's they talk about being a swamp. I grew up in East Tennessee. I think a swamp's pretty cool. It's an ecosystem God created. It's a filter. Animals live and thrive there. You can fish, you can hunt around them. The old timers knew this. And somehow we made swamp a bad thing. DC is a sewer. It is a man-made. God didn't create that, man did, and it stinks. And we need to clean it up. We need to clean it up. Everybody treats it, they need to pick and choose. You need to turn that thing upside down, put a fire hose to it, clean it out. Charlie?
Congressman?
Charlie?
If you hadn't chosen to go into public service, serious question, what do you think you and Chancellor Haggerty would be doing right now?
Okay, go ahead, Ag. You tell what you're gonna do. I'll hear this, and then I'll tell you what I would do.
Well, Tim and we were gonna start a business at cesspool diggers. I was gonna dig and he was gonna
I can't hear what you're saying.
cesspool digging.
Yeah. Actually, I would have been a welder. I love to weld. I have a degree in technological adult education, which is shop. And I don't do drugs, and I'd show up for work, and I'd make a whole lot more money than I do right now. And it'd be a 9 to 5, and I could work in Hawaii or Alaska or Knoxville, Tennessee.
Anybody else?
I'm getting a message here.
Tim.
No, I wouldn't read it if it did. Oh, yeah. Thanks, Thomas. I've got signs out front if anybody wants. Please, thank y'all. Larry, I'm sorry, you got one there.
Voter ID required if voter, we're going to get that passed.
I can't hear, Larry. I can't hear out this here. What'd you say?
Voter ID when you vote. Is that one over?
Talked about it on Blue in the Face. I've voted, I guess, maybe 5 times, past 3 times. I mean, I voted in different areas. It's in the Senate right now. And the only reason they don't want to pass it, I'm gonna tell you why they don't want to pass it. It's what I think. It's whatever. I think they don't have the guts anymore. I think they like the old days where I remember Jimmy Duncan talked about it. Remember when Newt Gingrich took over? The reason they took over is because a group of brave Republicans got on the floor and amended something and used parliamentary situation and amended a Democrat bill. And the Republican leadership blew their top. Man, you can't be doing that. We can't be doing that. And they're in the minority, and they figured out a way. They put them in a corner, and that's sort of. I think that's what they want it back to. They want to be able to be out on the golf course at the dadgum cocktail party, and they want to get the call and say, "Hey, it's time to vote." And they say, "Great. What are we voting on?" And then they say, "How do you want us to vote?" That's what they want. They don't want to upset their apple cart. I'm sick of it. I didn't go up there to party, run around on Kelly or anything like that. I live in my office. I actually don't live in the office anymore. I've had to move to the gym, so anyway, I don't want to correct that because I had a rat crawl in my young unit, and it was gnawing around up there, and I think it shorted some wires. So it's construction, Congressman, at 3 o'clock in the morning. Come on, And so I moved down to the gym. They got these little cubes down there. It's like death row. It's very quiet, so I can just walk right out, get to the gym at 5, get out and get in the office a long time before a lot of folks are. But what'd you ask me, Larry? I just went on. Voter ID. Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm not getting up on that, Jenny. What was that? I don't know. I do need some sleep. It's been bush hogging for the last between. I didn't go to DC to get in trouble. Voter ID. They have got to pass this thing because we are getting elections. And it just happens every day. You hear about another deal where they're stealing votes, and I keep tweeting out, it's happening again, but they said it's not happening. And it's at first it was just 1 or 2. What does that matter? Well, that's Glenn Jacobs. He won the mayor's race just by a handful of votes. But now it's getting to hundreds, if not thousands. And all you want to do is make sure it's an American citizen. In Tennessee, we have that. We've got an excellent Trey Hargett's the best in the country. He's the model that they go around, and he's the one that Democrats won't invite into their states. You should prove that you're an American citizen with a birth certificate and then show a dadgum ID at the polls. You do that for Little League. You know, I was speaking to a group of Mormons a while back, and I started talking about it. I said, you know, you go down to Weigel's, you can scratch off a 6-pack of beer and a pack of smokes. And I thought, oh, dadgum, this is a bunch of Mormons. You know? And I said, and all those things are bad. I don't know where I came up with that, but it's the truth. I mean, you do that for that. Go fly on a dadgum airplane. Or if you go to the airport like I do multiple times a week trying to get a dadgum flight. Don't get me started on that bunch. Anyway, voter ID. We need it. Let's pass it. We've got 2 great senators in this state that are for it. They said we're going to stay in D.C. till we get it. We got to have a few more doing that. All right, thank y'all.
Welcome, Gerald Allison.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say dost that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the whole